Okay, so this video is concerning the first three sections of Chapter 1, which are really kind of just giving an outline of what we mean by science and what we mean by chemistry. So chemistry is an example of a scientific discipline. A scientific discipline is a small part of science that is kind of a manageable chunk, if you will. So science can be defined as the systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge in the form of testable explanations and predictions about the nature of the universe. So the real key thing about science is that it's systematic. There's a method to it, and we'll be talking a little bit about the scientific method later on. And the key thing here is that anything that we propose as an explanation as to why something occurs is testable. So if our explanation isn't testable, then it's not science. So science is just one way of studying the universe. It's just a type of approach to studying the universe. But in science, we make an assumption that the universe obeys laws of natural origin. That is, that some things just operate in a certain way, and that's just how they are. So objects dropped on the surface of the Earth will fall towards the center of the Earth. That's just what happens. That's how things work. The role of a scientist is to try and understand what these laws are and how they work, how they operate. And we're going to do this using this thing called the scientific method. So that's our systematic approach to tackling a problem. So chemistry is an example of a scientific discipline. And as I said, a scientific discipline is just a little bit of science that is a manageable chunk, if you will. So science is often divided into physical sciences and biological sciences. So physical sciences are concerned with the study of matter and energy, and the biological sciences, also sometimes referred to as the earth sciences, they're the study of things that are alive. So physical sciences include things like astronomy, geology or the earth sciences, physics, and of course, chemistry. Chemistry is often referred to as the central science because it kind of fits in between the physical sciences and the biological sciences. And there's a lot of overlap between these scientific disciplines. For example, people study geochemistry, which is the overlap between geology and chemistry. People study chemical physics, which is the overlap between, you guessed it, physics and chemistry. And then there are some more less well-known examples, things like astrochemistry, where people study the composition of stars and planets. Of course, chemistry overlaps with the life sciences, and that's through the study of what we call biochemistry. Chemistry itself can be divided into multiple sub-disciplines, and these are five kind of commonly known ones. There's analytical chemistry, which is the study of the analysis and composition of matter. There's general chemistry, which is what we're studying, which is all about the fundamental laws and concepts of chemistry. There's inorganic chemistry, which is the chemistry of things that don't contain carbon. And then there's organic chemistry, which is the exact opposite. It's the study of things that do contain carbon. Physical chemistry is more concerned with about how matter changes its energy. Now, there are many more subdivisions. The American Chemical Society has 33 subdivisions within its organization, and there's a big table of those in your book. So chemistry is an example of a scientific discipline, which is a small piece of science that's of manageable size. Science is a systematic way of studying the universe. The key thing about science is any explanation that we come up with to explain how something works, it has to be testable. So science is based on observation and experiment. Chemistry is an example of a physical science concerned with the study of matter and energy. And in particular, we're going to be studying general chemistry, which seeks to understand fundamental laws and concepts of chemistry. So how scientists obtain information is through the process of scientific research. one of the products of scientific research can be technology. So scientific research is really just this systematic scientific investigation of something, and it's generally divided into two categories. There's basic research, which is, concerned with uncovering basic or fundamental information about a topic. And then there's applied research, where you begin with the intention of developing a new product or process. The information that we get from scientific research is often used to develop new technology, where technology can be defined as new products and processes that are intended to improve the quality of human life. Now, this we should put a little kind of qualifier in here. The technology, is intended to improve the quality of our lives. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes we have unintended consequences that are detrimental. So, for example, over here we have these kids over here. They've been affected by a drug that was given to pregnant women, and it caused the unborn children of those women to not develop their limbs properly. That was, not expected. It wasn't intended. It was a detrimental, unintended outcome. So in science, we get new information through the process of research, and basic research is intended just to obtain fundamental information, whereas applied research, we begin with the intention that we're looking to develop new products and processes. Technology is the application of the information that we obtain from research to develop new products and processes that are anticipated to benefit humans. Sometimes it doesn't quite work out that way. So the scope of chemistry, what we're really talking about here, is what are the kinds of problems that chemistry attempts to solve. So chemistry can be defined as the scientific discipline that is concerned with the study of matter, the properties of matter, and the transformations of matter. So it would be nice to have a definition of matter, and matter can be simply defined as anything that occupies space and has mass. Another way of saying occupies space is anything that has volume. So what is this thing called mass? Mass is the quantity that describes how much matter is in an object. There's two qualities of mass that are important. The first is that mass is constant at every place in the universe. So mass does not vary with location. In the lab, we measure mass using a balance. At home, you probably call this a scale, but in the lab, we call the device that we use to measure mass a balance. It comes from the old days when it used to be like what we have here. This is called a beam balance. And when the beam across the top here was perfectly horizontal, we would know that we would have equal masses in each of the two pans. So when this beam was balanced, then the masses on either side would be equal. Now, mass should not be confused with weight. Weight is the force of gravity acting on an object, and that does vary with location. So, for example, on the Earth, you would experience a different perception, or you would experience a different extent of gravity than you would in outer space. So on the Earth, you would have your normal weight. In outer space, you would be weightless. On the Moon, you would have kind of an intermediate situation. Your weight would be about 1/6 of what it is on the Earth, but you would not be completely weightless like you would be in space. So chemistry has a really, really broad scope. Some people are studying the matter that makes up living things, perhaps looking at something like DNA. Some people are studying things like liquid fuels, like oil and petroleum products fall into this category. Some people are studying astrochemistry, so they're helping to design space probes to study what's out there. Some people are tackling very practical problems, like how do I build a better raincoat? There's a lot of work that is done on energy transformation materials, so things like solar cells and, of course, microelectronics, and pharmaceuticals are all things that chemists would study. So chemistry is concerned with the study of matter, the properties of that matter, and the transformations that it undergoes. Matter is defined as anything that has mass and occupies space. This is a pretty broad definition. This is a pretty broad subject area, so the scope of chemistry, the type of problems that chemists study, is very, very broad.